Seneca Crane is the only head game maker we ever watched the Capitol execute. Not a rebel, not a spy from the districts, their own man. The one who built the arena, ran the whole show, and answered straight to the president. And within 6 months of the 74th Hunger Games, he was dead on Snow's orders. For a system that murders children for entertainment, that should be nothing. So why does the Capitol turn around and kill its own game maker? The official reason is simple. He let 2 tributes live when the rules said 1. But the more you pull on that thread, the score he handed out, the rule he broke, the berries he blinked at, and the name Suzanne Collins buried in him from the very first page, the more it looks like the Capitol didn't kill Seneca Crane for making a mistake. It killed him because somewhere underneath, it was afraid he'd done it on purpose. So here's the question. Was Seneca Crane a rebel the whole time? We'll walk through all of it, the parts the movies added, the parts the books quietly confirm, and one detail in the very next book where Katniss all but answers it for us. Stick around for that, because it's the closest thing to a confession we get. And if you end up as obsessed with this world as I am, hit subscribe, let's get into it. First, you have to understand what this man was, because it makes everything after it stranger. Before the games even start, Seneca Crane sits across from Caesar Flickerman for an interview, like a celebrity, talking about his style, his vision. He's proud of the arena he's building. This is not a reluctant cog. He's an artist, and his art is a killing field for 24 kids. And he's good at it. When Katniss drifts too far from the pack and the show starts to sag, he throws a wall of fire at her, fireballs straight out of the arena floor, hurting her back toward the cameras. At the finale, he unleashes the Mitations wearing the faces of the dead tributes. That's his design. Cruel, precise, completely at home in it. So no, I'm not about to tell you he was secretly a sweetheart. That's exactly what makes the rest so hard to explain. Start with the number that shouldn't exist. The 11. When Katniss does her private session, the game makers barely look at her. Drunk, bored, more interested in a roast pig than the girl from 12. So she does the most defiant thing a tribute can do in that building. She turns her bow on the people scoring her and puts an arrow through the apple in that pig's mouth. It's an insult. A threat. A starving girl from the poorest district telling the Capitol's own judges to look at her, or else. By every rule of that world, you punish that. You bury her score. You make an example of her. Seneca Crane gave her an 11 out of 12. The highest score of the entire games. Sit with that. That number is what makes the Capitol fall in love with her. The first real spark of the girl on fire. And it came straight from the man in charge, handed over like a reward for aiming a weapon at his own people. Maybe he just respected the nerve. Or maybe that early, some part of him already liked what she was becoming. Hold that thought. Now the rule. The one victor law had stood for 74 years. It's the entire engine of the games. 2 kids from the same district grow up knowing that in the end, one of them has to bury the other. That's the whole point of the thing. Seneca Crane broke it. Halfway through, he goes on the air and changes it. 2 from the same district can both come home. In the film, he sells it cold, a way to feed the lover storyline and keep Katniss on a leash. Fine, but look at what he physically did. 74 years of iron law, and he's the man who cracked it open. He handed 2 kids a reason to stop fighting each other and start surviving together. He built, with his own hands, the loophole Katniss would later drive a truck straight through. And then, the berries. Picture it. 2 of them left. The Capitol yanks the rule back because Snow wants his single winner. The lovers turned on each other for the cameras, a bloody finale to remind the districts how this always ends. And Katniss, instead of killing Peeta, pulls out the nightlock. Both of them. A shared death that leaves the 74th Hunger Games with no victor at all. This is the moment everything turns. Because the loyal move is to let them do it. Let them die. A double suicide is controllable, you spin it, you crown no one, you teach the districts that defiance ends in a corpse. Snow could have swallowed that. Seneca Crane couldn't. He blinked. He stopped the countdown and crowned them both. Live. In front of the whole nation. He chose 2 victors over none. And in that one flinch, he let the entire country watch the Capitol get told no, and back down. That's the crack the second rebellion comes pouring through. And the man who opened it wasn't a district, or an army, or a spy. It was the Capitol's own head game maker. There's one more scene, only in the films, that I can't shake. After the game, Snow walks Seneca slow through the white roses. On the surface, it's a lecture. Hope is what really keeps the districts in line. Too much of it burns everything down. The games ration it out drop by drop. But watch how Snow looks at him. He's not correcting an employee. He's measuring him, quietly deciding whether the man beside him has become a problem. By the end of that walk, I think Snow already knows what he's going to do. So was it nerve failing or a choice? Here's where the name comes in, and this reorganized how I read all of it. Suzanne Collins does not name people by accident, and she named this man Seneca. There was a real Seneca. Seneca the Younger, a Roman philosopher, one of the most powerful men in the empire, tutor and right hand to the Emperor Nero. And in the year 65, Nero accused him of joining a plot to assassinate him. A conspiracy. The historians tell us there was almost no real proof. Seneca may well have been innocent, swept up on a rumor because a paranoid emperor had started to fear the influence of his own advisor. Nero had reportedly tried to poison him once already. Seneca had tried more than once to retire, to slip quietly out of the emperor's orbit, and wasn't allowed to leave. A man who served the tyrant faithfully was never permitted to stop being useful, and was killed the moment his usefulness curdled into suspicion. Nero didn't hold a trial, he sent soldiers with one order: take your own life. And Seneca did by his own hand on the command of the ruler he'd served for years. Now look back at Seneca Crane, an advisor to the ruler, suspected of weakening him from the inside. No trial. Just a quiet order to die by his own hand, alone in a locked room, from a bowl left waiting on the table. Collins named him, from the very first book, after the most famous advisor in history forced to kill himself over a conspiracy he may not even have been part of. That's not a coincidence. That's a fingerprint. And it sharpens. The way the film kills him, poison in a sealed room, is almost exactly how ancient Rome disposed of its disgraced elites. You weren't dragged to a block, you were invited to do it yourself. Some people catch a second echo in there too, to Socrates, handed a cup of poison and made to drink his own death for corrupting the young. Every layer of this man's ending is welded together out of old stories about thinkers killed by the state for maybe, possibly, thinking the wrong way. And here's what seals it. In the books, you never actually meet Seneca Crane. Not once. Katniss narrates every page, and she's never in a room with him. His name doesn't even appear until book 2. No lines, no face, no thoughts, no interior life at all. On the page, he's a blank the exact size of a person. Which means the filmmakers, working from Collins' own screenplay, took that blank and deliberately dressed it in a Roman martyr's death, and gave him a beard shaped like curling fire, on the man whose whole job was to light the girl on fire. None of that is an accident. So let me hit it from the other side, quick, because if I don't, I'm not being straight with you. The boring version is that he's no rebel, he's a producer, and every act of defiance has a cold twin that's just about ratings. The 11 is great television. The rule change protects the love story, printing his biggest numbers ever. The Blink is a man panicking, realizing a no-victor finale ends his career, and grabbing the only exit that saves his face. And since the book gives him nothing to get inside of, calling him a secret rebel isn't reading the character, it's painting one onto empty space. Every heroic reading has a selfish twin, and the twin is always simpler. So which is it? Here's where I landed, after chewing on this way too long. He was not a conscious rebel, but that turns out to be the least interesting part, because it never mattered whether he was. Watch what actually kills him. Snow doesn't execute Seneca Crane for uncovering a plot. There is no plot. He executes him for what Seneca caused, not what he intended. The score, the rule, the blink, they tore the capital story open in front of the whole country, and the reason behind them is completely irrelevant to Snow. A real rebel and a nervous showman who just wanted a better ending make the exact same picture on screen. And in Snow's world, the picture is the crime. That's the whole horror of the capital, folded into one man. It's so obsessed with control it can no longer tell an enemy from a mistake, and it kills them both the same way. Nero killed his most loyal advisor over a rumor. Snow kills the game maker who just handed him the highest rated games in history over a flinch. That's not strength. That's a system so terrified of hope it started eating its own best people for the crime of letting a little of it slip out. Because that's what Seneca really did, on purpose or not. Hope is the most dangerous thing there is. A little keeps the districts obedient and too much makes them lethal, and the games exist to hand it out in careful little doses. Seneca Crane let out too much. One score, one rule, one blink, and the dose got away from him. And that thing I told you to hold on to, the 11, look at it now with all of this in your head. The very first move he makes toward Katniss is to reward her defiance in front of the people whose entire job is to punish it. Whether he understood it or not, the man was pointing her at the throne from the opening act. And here's the confession I promised you, and it isn't even his. It's hers. In the next book, back in that same training center, standing in front of a brand new set of game makers, Katniss builds a dummy. And she paints a name across its chest. Seneca Crane. Then she strings it up, right there in front of them. She's reminding the capital's own people to their faces. What happens to a game maker who lets a tribute make the games look weak? The rebels understood exactly what Seneca did, well enough to weaponize his corpse. To the districts, he wasn't the man who ran the arena. He was the first game maker the Capitol ate, and they hung his name up as proof it could happen again. So was Seneca Crane a rebel the whole time? Honestly, I don't think the books will let us prove it either way, and I've come to believe that's the entire point. Collins gives him a name that guarantees his ending, then wraps him in the same doubt that's hung over the real Seneca for 2,000 years. Traitor or scapegoat, believer or just a man who blinked at the wrong second. We are meant to be stuck there, because the Capitol was stuck there too, and it killed him anyway. Here's what I actually want from you. Put yourself in that control room. 2 kids, poison in their hands, the whole country watching, 1 second on the clock to decide. Do you let them die and keep the rule intact, or do you blink, like he did, knowing it might be the last call you ever make? Be honest with me down below. I don't think it's as easy as it sounds. Seneca Crane was never a character I gave much thought to until I started pulling on this thread, and now I genuinely can't unsee him as the first domino. The quiet one. The one nobody in the room even noticed. Go over. 6 minutes of screen time, and maybe the reason the whole thing eventually came down. So tell me, loyal servant who lost his nerve, or the first rebel nobody thought to look at? Make your case. I'll be reading every one of them.